Yeah, it just hand me that green book. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. If it's the same.
Yeah. That used to be fun because it was tired. Yes. No. Just we have to let people take their rights away. Especially while on so I believe it was just
Interesting and already live. Like, you can't just stare at a...
No more boxes.
My audience is impatient, I know it. But you know it, everybody knows it.
Maybe $20 up to the little tickets.
Yeah, right. Just stand in the front. As long as you yell mic test while you're doing it.
Yeah. Hold up a white sheet of paper in front of my face.
What's up? Should I start it? Okay. Sorry, I'll
Sorry. I was kind of
Take
sitting
that seat.
Is that seat on the far side open?
There's another computer actually.
Is it another laptop?
You want to try to get through?
Yeah, sure. I can't hear real well. If I close up, I can at least hear. Thanks. I'm gonna step back a little and tell them to really shoot. Sorry about that. You give me all that courtesy when you stand on your feet.
No worries, no. It's
Nick Romeo, nice to meet you. There's 6 of us walking right through here, so if you could stand up, that would be great. Absolutely. As soon as you are ready, we will begin. Don't worry.
What?
If it falls over like that, we'll still get along. Great. Anybody else need a level check, sound check? Yes, please. You're welcome. Counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My name is Randall Terry. I'm the founder of Operation Rescue. It is spelled RANDALLTERRY. Can't hear. Testing the level. Checking the level. All right, I'll be right back. We'll begin.
choose, yeah, I want this to be, yeah.
I
No,
just
it just
think
does it
it's
based on the way it's oriented right when you
Yeah.
press start, yeah. Oh, I don't think I internalized how many people are behind us right now. I think they're all gonna come out the door behind
Yeah.
me there.
Going to go that way, so I'm gonna try to, I don't know if my camera's wide enough.
Just a minute. Three, two. Live stream's going.
Hi, everyone. My name is Randall Terry, and we are going to have a presentation, probably take 18 minutes. I'm asking two things. Number one, we will not field questions from the press until the presentation is done, because we don't want to jump the gun, and a lot of what you are going to ask, we are going to cover. All right? We'll get out of here much quicker if we do that. Second of all, anybody who is here that is not a member of the press, we request that you do not ask questions, don't make speeches. This is a formal press conference, and we ask you to respect that. My name is Randall Terry. I'm the founder of Operation Rescue. My name is spelled R-A-N-D-A-L-L-T-E-R-R-Y. This is a lady who's become a dear friend of mine, Teresa Bukanovac. She is the founder and the director of PAAU. That is PAAU, Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising. And our relationship has been endearing, it has been courageous, and I have to tell you that she is one of the most courageous people I have ever met in my life, and I am honored to stand beside her and for her and Lauren to tell their story. Teresa.
Hello, my name is Teresa Bukanovac. I am an atheist, I'm a leftist, and I'm the founder and executive director of PAUU, the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising. On Friday, March 25th, the day of the unborn child, Lauren Handy and I went to Washington Surgery Center to engage in anti-abortion advocacy. Upon arrival, we saw a truck labeled Curtis Bay Medical Waste Services parked outside. We approached the driver, who was about to load 2 large boxes with biohazard symbols onto his truck. We asked him if he knew what was in the boxes, and after he said no, we told him, dead babies. The driver was visibly shaken. After he confirmed the boxes were from Washington Surgery, I asked him, would you get in trouble if we took one of these boxes? And he asked, what would you do with them if you took one? Lauren said, we will give them a proper burial and a funeral. The driver thought for a second and said, okay, and gestured towards the box. Lauren immediately grabbed the box off of the dolly, and we brought it back to her apartment. In the presence of a Catholic deacon, Lauren cut open the box and the red plastic bag inside. We then proceeded to unpack the remains of 110, mostly first trimester aborted children. At the bottom of the box was a clear plastic bag with 5 more containers, one much bigger than the remaining 4. Lauren reached into the largest bucket and removed the remains of a beautiful, intact, and nearly full-term baby boy whom we named Christopher X. I think I can speak for both Lauren and I when I say this was the most devastating and soul-crushing experience of our lives. Not even years of anti-abortion advocacy could have prepared us for that moment. And it's a moment that will live on for us for all of time. We continued to open the larger containers and discovered 4 more babies with a range of injuries, including a fully intact girl we named Harriet, who had one eye open, an incision in the back of her neck, her brain suctioned out, and her skull crushed. 2 other late-term babies named Angel and Holly were severely dismembered, and the final baby, Phoenix, was whole and still inside the amniotic sac. A feticide is generally used during abortion procedures after 20 weeks gestation to cause an unborn baby a heart attack, which helps prevent a live birth and the excruciating pain of total dismemberment. But in 2013, Live Action captured undercover footage of abortionist Cesare Santangelo, the sole abortionist on staff for decades at Washington Surgery, admitting that he does not use feticide. Because of this admission and the advanced gestational ages of these babies and their intact condition, the likelihood that some were born alive is undeniable. Additionally, the injuries sustained by Harriet strongly imply she was the victim of a partial birth abortion. After spending nearly 3 days searching for a private pathologist to confirm these violations of federal law, a funeral mass was held at Lauren's apartment, where all 115 babies were named. Shortly after, the 110 smaller children were taken to an undisclosed location for burial. They have since been buried. On March 29th, Lauren and I coordinated with attorneys to alert the DC Homicide Unit of the location of the 5 larger babies and request an investigation into their deaths. Arrangements were made for the babies to be picked up that evening, but police didn't arrive until the afternoon of the 30th, just hours after Lauren was taken into custody by the FBI in connection with a rescue 2 years prior. Today I stand in solidarity with Lauren and the 8 other defendants who are facing harsh incarceration penalties under the FACE Act for simply protecting the victims of violent oppression at Santangelo's clinic. And while these heroes are being unjustly prosecuted, Santangelo continues to kill babies and exploit their parents for profit, as he has done for decades. This must end. We are demanding that the DC police conduct a full investigation into the deaths of these babies, including thorough autopsies. We demand that the U.S. Department of Justice prosecute Santangelo for violations of the Born Alive Infant Protection Act and the Partial Birth Abortion Act, and we're demanding it now. And in an effort to keep our promise to the Curtis Bay whistleblower, we demand a proper burial for the remaining 5 children post-autopsy. Pro-life Americans will not stay silent in the face of such aggressive and barbarous violence, and we will diligently work until the American abortion industrial complex is fully disarmed and dismantled. Thank you.
Next is Lauren Handy. Lauren is the Director of Activism for PAAU.
Hello, my name is Lauren Handy. I'm a devout Catholic who supports economic left policies and creating a culture of life. I'm also the Director of Activism for the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising and one of the 9 defendants indicted by the FBI on FACE charges. I made a promise, a funeral and a burial. It has been my desire since the beginning, since March 25th, and through the whole process to ensure these children's dignity were uplifted and respected. During the 5 days they were under my stewardship, the 115 victims of abortion violence were given a funeral mass for unbaptized children, and the 110 have been given a proper burial in a private cemetery by a priest. But what about the 5? Phoenix, Harriet, Christopher X, Angel, and Holly, the children who have been featured in the news so far, were so advanced in their gestational age, and the patterns of their wounds suggest violent federal crimes. We arranged for the medical examiner to pick up the children. Washington Surgery is part of a network of 21 abortion centers in the DMV area. The abortion industry, which is the overlapping interests of state and business, use fear, isolation, and violence to make profit off of people who are pregnant, families, and in particular, low-income women facing crisis and unwanted pregnancies. Uplifting and showing the 5 children does not pit us against their parents. I am deeply heartbroken for these families. Their exploitation from Washington surging, and then their children being used for profit by Curtis Bay shows how deeply flawed our communities are structured.
Next, one of the 9 defendants who were arrested by the FBI under the FACE Act is Joan Andrews Bell. Joan and I have been good friends for over 30 years and have done, I don't even know how many, innumerable pro-life events together, being arrested together. She is currently the founder and director of Gloria Dei Apostolate, and she is nationally known as a living legend and hero. Joan, it's good to be with you.
I want to just take this opportunity to thank my dear friends in PAAU and all my dear pro-life friends everywhere for every single day doing what they can to the best of their ability by the grace of God to defend little babies, to love their moms and dads, and to love the abortionists and pray for their conversion. I got involved in direct action when I was 12, 13 years old in the civil rights movement. And this action that I do now and have done for the last nearly 50 years is in line with that, to try to stand up for truth, to honor God, and to love my country and my fellow Americans by hoping that we will convert, become a people of love and charity, and defend the defenseless and the just. And I just want to mention, at Nuremberg, after World War II, there were 2 trials in which judges were tried for crimes against humanity and doctors tried for crimes against humanity. Now in this country, and the Allies, Americans and other Allied powers, scolded those judges and doctors who said, but it was legal, because crimes against the Jews and other individuals was illegal in Germany. In fact, to help a Jew would be a crime against the government, and you would be tried for treason. That's why if you hit a Jew in your home, you could be shot to death. You know, we don't face that much now, but maybe in the near future we will. But what our courts told, what the international court told those German criminals was that you cannot legalize murder. And we say it to America today. America, you cannot legalize the murder of the innocent and the just. God bless you.
Jonathan Darnell is here with us, a courageous man who is also one of the 9 people who were arrested by the FBI, and he is the director of GetSeriousChurch.com. Jonathan.
Hi, like I said, my name is Jonathan Darnell. Unlike some of my friends, I'm not myself a progressive, but I am vehemently anti-abortion, and I made this website, GetSeriousChurch.com, to convince Christians to fight abortion more effectively. All right? Now, when you do that, bad stuff can happen to you sometimes. 2 years ago, I was filming a peaceful pro-life activity at the Washington Surgery Center. All right, and then we didn't hear anything for 2 years. And then last Wednesday morning at the crack of dawn, an FBI SWAT team busted down our door, handcuffed myself and all my housemates, arrested me, and held me in custody for 9 hours. I never saw a warrant. I accept things like that. I know it's going to happen. But here's what I don't accept. As this case is going to be adjudicated, all right, you're going to hear a lot of Christian and pro-life celebrities condemning us for making waves, for taking risks. There are a lot of people in positions of power in the pro-life movement who think that the only effective way to fight abortion is to stay quiet and to not offend anyone. And they've made cowards out of the rest of us for decades. Apparently these 109 babies are not quite human enough to dignify by doing the sort of things that you would do to save the life of a born person. That's nonsense, and I hope the events of this week begin to change that. Thank you.
Finally, we have Missy Smith. Missy is the director of Wake Up. She was my vice presidential candidate a few years back when we ran against Obama as Democrats to run ads on television of aborted children. very effective. Before that, she ran for the U.S. House of Representatives, the shadow seat in the district. And some of you might have been around at that time and remember those ads. It was quite a firestorm that was created as Missy ran for Congress, showing aborted fetal remains on television, saying if you vote for so-and-so, you are voting for this. Missy is a dear friend and colleague and one of the most articulate and courageous women I know. Missy Smith.
Thank you, Randall. My name is Missy Smith. I'm here to talk about Dr. Santangelo, the abortionist who killed these babies. Remember that name, Dr. Santangelo, spelled S-A-N-T-A-N-G-E-L-O. The reason that the 9 pro-lifers were arrested at Santangelo's office on October 2020 was to expose him and save babies from his clutches. In November 2020, I personally retrieved a full-term baby on which Dr. Santangelo had induced an abortion. She was found in the toilet of a Maryland restaurant. I named her Philomena Grace, and we gave her a proper Catholic burial. The 115 babies found at St. Angelo's abortion mill included 110 first trimester babies, as well as 5 third trimester babies killed by St. Angelo. The corpses of these 5 babies appear to indicate a violation of federal law. Dr. Santangelo needs to be investigated immediately by the U.S. Department of Justice, who is tasked with enforcing federal law. Furthermore, we believe the D.C. Metro Police are actively involved in a cover-up of Dr. Santangelo's crimes. The bio-waste company from which we intercepted these children's bodies is Curtis Bay Energy. Remember that name, Curtis Bay Energy. Curtis Bay Energy states on their website that they burn biomedical waste to sustain the energy needs of the Baltimore area. This means tragically that they receive, transfer, and burn the corpses of aborted babies to make electricity for the household and businesses of the Baltimore area. If you live in the Baltimore area, you must know that aborted babies have been burned to keep your lights on and your house warm. We call on Curtis Bay Energy to end this barbaric practice and to confirm publicly that they have done so.
All right, now we're going to show, what is it, like 2 to 3 minutes tops? Okay, we're going to show a couple of clips, and there's 2 reasons for this. One is so you can see the gestational age of the baby named Christopher X, and to show that Curtis Bay was involved in transferring these bodies. We've heard that they're denying it, which is just absurd. We have the film of it. So when this is done, I will have one more comment, and then we will take questions from the floor.
We also want to give a disclaimer that we believe that it is the right of these victims to have their full stories told. That means having the reality of what abortion, showing the reality of what abortion did to them. Journalistic integrity requires viewing the impact of those victimized by abortion. The videos you are about to view are extremely graphic. If you have abortion-related trauma, have had an abortion, or have experienced pregnancy loss, please be advised.
Give me just a moment, the audio is not. Is it okay? Yeah. I think, can I turn it up on the back?
This is real time. So when they open the boxes, you are seeing what they saw for the first time.
It's the plus button on the other side.
Just mute it. I know that that is very hard to watch. And I cannot imagine. We have been in situations like this before where we had the remains. And I want to say something to the Christian community and to the pro-life community, because there are a good number of press people here who are from Catholic and evangelical backgrounds. Teresa and I agree on almost nothing. Literally. We'll laugh, we'll have a beer together, and we are committed to ending the killing of children. Lauren and I agree on a couple more things, because we're both Catholic. But we tend to be more renegade Catholics, and her and I also don't agree on much. But the courage and the dedication of these two women is on a level that I have rarely seen. I don't impress easily, and I have been incredibly impressed by these women. And to the Orthodox to the priest and the Levite who walk by on the other side of the road, remember the Good Samaritan. The priest and the Levite had the right theology. They were the respected pillars of the community. The Good Samaritan was the heretic, the outcast, the one the Jews would have nothing to do with. And Jesus made the Good Samaritan the hero of the story and used the Good Samaritan to rebuke the religious leaders of his day who thought that they were great and high and holy and mighty. And so I endorse what these ladies are doing, largely because not only are they saving babies' lives, but because they are living, breathing, walking rebukes to the cowardice and the treachery and the self-love of the Christian community at large and our leaders in particular, the priests and the Levites of our day. They are living, breathing, walking rebukes to cowardly Christian clergy, and I love them both. And finally, picture it's 1850, Charleston, and there's two reporters in this beautiful fair, and one of them is a reporter for a newspaper in Atlanta, and one of them is a reporter for a newspaper in Boston. And the Atlanta newspaper journalist writes about the weather and the beautiful new parasols that just arrived from France, and how the cider was so good this year, and the flowers were blooming. All accurate, a very accurate depiction. And then the Boston writer discusses the 3 boats full of slaves that had just arrived, and the weeping, and how horrible their condition was, and watching some of the more beautiful females be sold, and discussing that they were undoubtedly going to be sold not only into slavery, but sex slavery. Which was also an accurate depiction. So you as journalists, and your editors in particular, have an option, have a choice to be the Atlanta journalist or the Boston journalist. But woe to you. Remember, if it was 1942 or 1943 and a German photographer or a videographer made it into Auschwitz or Dachau and took footage of what was happening in those facilities and did not show it, that photojournalist would be a collaborator with the Nazis and with the killers. And that is what has become of so much media in America today. Collaborators, by hiding the truth. And it is repugnant, it is an offense against God and a treachery against these victims. So now, we will take questions, please, one at a time, and direct the question to any individual. And we will begin with you, and then we'll go to you, sir. Go ahead.
Hi, I have 2 questions. Thank you for being here, both of you ladies. Could you first speak to the legal action that's been taken against Lauren? I know you mentioned incarceration. Could you just briefly re-explain what action has been taken against her?
The action that people are referring to is the FBI indictment for the face charge. I have not been contacted by Metropolitan Police about the children, and the FBI were never in my home as well.
Thank you. And also, as the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, I'd like to know if any progressive lawmakers have reacted or responded to these uncoverings, and any lawmakers in general. I haven't seen much on my end.
I haven't seen it either.
Shamefully, no.
Thank you, ladies.
Sure. Has an independent doctor examined the fetuses before DC police obtained them?
Our goal was to make that happen, but because the days were going by and we were unable to find a pathologist or some kind of specialist that could verify the gestational ages of these children and the cause of death, that's when we made the determination to turn them over to the homicide unit.
DC police, as a follow-up, DC police has said the fetuses were aborted according to DC law. What is your reaction to that?
We did not want these babies to go to the DC police. They should have gone to the federal government. They should have gone to the DOJ or to the FBI. Go ahead and look. You can kill a baby for any reason up to the day of birth in DC. None to see here, people. So the police are betraying the babies, and in some ways they're covering for Santangelo just because what he did is legal here. This is like one step away from hell. But the federal government passed the Partial Birth Abortion Act. The federal government passed the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, and they are the ones, the DOJ is tasked with determining if these babies were the victims of crimes. It's really a simple test. Did air get in their lungs? If they were born alive, there'll be evidence that air was breathed in. Gosnell, many of you are familiar with the abortionist in Philadelphia. He's in prison for the rest of his life without parole because he was doing abortions like this. And Santangelo is a criminal. These people are heroes, and they're facing jail, and Santangelo is a mass murderer walking free while the DOJ persecutes the innocent. Yes?
Do you believe that you have any hope of the Biden DOJ actually prosecuting Santangelo?
I believe in people power. I believe in people power, and I believe in the hope that justice will prevail.
And to that same end, are you concerned at all that they are going to charge you in relation to this action?
I mean, it's a possibility. We don't know what's going to happen, but we're not afraid.
Every action has consequences, and we weighed our actions, and we know that we have to accept those consequences as well. And I believe those consequences are worth it in the pursuit of justice for these 5, in pursuit of justice for people who were exploited by the abortion industry.
Joan, could I get you to address, seems like what we're witnessing right now is a really important moment in the history of the pro-life movement. Could you just talk about how important this day is and what is going on right now?
I think whenever the victims are brought into focus and are spoken of, allowing people to love them, to repent, it's a great thing. It's a great, great thing. Whether it will be a landmark moment, all depends on the response of the people, of those who love God, those who maybe don't even know God, but they love the babies. The response will make it known whether this is taken seriously. What happened with these children and what's been going on in our country for, this is the 50th year of legalized child murder. So we have to wait and see.
Thank you, Jonathan and Randall, for your comments about Christians and their inaction. Could I get you to comment, what is your message to progressives?
There is no progress without the unborn. We cannot build a better world on a pile of murdered children. That's not progress. Real progress is protecting the vulnerable from exploitation, from people like Santangelo, who are the real villains here. True progressives must stand up against this injustice. And like Lauren, I believe in the power of people. We're never going to be able to outspend the abortion industrial complex, but we can embolden enough people to stand up to them, and that's what we intend to do.
Can I ask a couple of questions?
Yes, please.
Could you clarify again when you mentioned about the thing with police and how they came to your house and how they were summoned? Because I know there was the letter from your lawyer, so I wanted to just clarify so I understood that. And secondly, it looked like you were videotaping, right, with the box. Do you have a videotape of the person, the conversation, and you giving the box, him giving you the box?
We don't have video of that. We have some photographs, time-stamped around that time. Sorry, was there another question?
Yeah.
Well, just the first one about explaining again. You said that you had thought the police were coming in the morning and then they came later or something.
Yes, so our attorney made arrangements with the DC Homicide Unit to pick up the children on the night of the 29th. We were instructed to go to the apartment, unlock the door, allow the police to come in and take the babies and return 2 hours later to lock up. We were tired. Lauren has been staying at my apartment this entire time. We were not staying in the apartment, eating in the apartment. And we decided we were tired, we were just gonna go back in the morning. In the morning, we started receiving calls and word that the FBI was making arrests in this unrelated but connected through Santangelo case. And so we hurried over to her apartment to check and see if the police had taken the babies. When we arrived, we stepped out of the Uber, FBI stepped out of their cars, they arrested Lauren on the sidewalk. I took a video of that interaction, and then she was taken into custody. The FBI never entered her home. They asked me to take her things into her apartment, which I did, and when I went in, I realized that the babies were still there. I then contacted the lawyers, and they made arrangements I allowed the DC police I gave them permission to enter the home just a few hours after Lauren's arrest.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, let me say something, then we'll take your question.
Sure.
There have been people complaining that they had the babies in their apartment for a total of 5 days. The 110 smaller children were taken away earlier than that and had been properly buried by a Catholic priest. It is beyond disingenuous, it's offensive that anyone would call into question their manners or their integrity for having these babies in a refrigerator when they took such care to treat them with honor and dignity and sought nothing but a proper Christian burial. The people who are complaining about the fact that they had these babies are at the height of hypocrisy. The horror is that this happened to these babies and that Santangelo had them in his refrigerator for months and that they were going to be burned to make electricity for Maryland. That's what's offensive. Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned the 110 who were buried by the Catholic priest. Who coordinated that burial? I know you mentioned it when you spoke. Who coordinated that on your team? Did you also contact the DC police for that burial? Where were they buried? Who was the Catholic priest? What are the details of that?
Information will come more forward soon. Right now we're trying to arrange a tombstone with the names etched on the tombstone.
Are they buried in the district?
Once again, more information will come forward soon. We're arranging a tombstone with the names etched on the tombstone. Thank you.
And is the priest in the district?
Sorry, once again, more information will come soon. We want to get a tombstone with the names etched on the tombstone. Thank you.
One of the reasons we waited till today to do the press conference is there's so many moving parts and there's so many details. And it would be unfair to the priest to let his name out prematurely. So
Can you at least answer if you coordinated with DC police or anyone within DC when you conducted that burial?
No, ma'am, we won't answer, but no. Go ahead.
The video shown has the box opening up, and then afterwards you see the containers. Was there more video shot, and if so, will that be released?
There was an exorbitant amount of footage and go ahead and answer, because you're going to put it up on your website.
Yes, before we opened the box, we set up a camera in the room that took, real-time footage of the entire event. These close-up shots that you see were taken from my phone, which are just a little bit more visible for you guys to understand what was going on. The other camera is from a distance.
I have a statement, if I can, from Curtis Bay Energy, if I can get some comment from it. And I quote, "On March 25th, a Curtis Bay employee took custody of 3 packages from the Washington Surgery Center, Washington Surgery Clinic, and delivered all of them to Curtis Bay's incineration facility. At no time did the Curtis Bay employee hand over any of these packages to the PAAU or other third party, and any allegations made otherwise are false." One more paragraph. "As stated in client agreements and company policy, customers like Washington Surgery Clinic are prohibited from disposing of fetuses and human remains via Curtis Bay services. Curtis Bay provides its clients with medical waste bags and boxes to use in a manner that complies with applicable law, client agreements, and company policy. Curtis Bay continues to fully cooperate with law enforcement." Could you please comment?
When we spoke with the driver, he did say that he had already scanned the boxes in, and that was right before he asked what would you do with them. So I am not sure if Curtis Bay is lying or if he simply already scanned them in and so therefore they're accounting for them. From our observation, there was only 2 boxes, but it's possible that he had loaded one onto the truck before we arrived. What was the last part of that?
Some to the point that it's possible that they don't know that the abortion is.
Right, and it's definitely possible that they don't know what is inside the box. It's possible that Santangelo was in violation of his contract with Curtis Bay by putting these babies in this box. But one of them is in the wrong, one of them needs to be held accountable, or both of them.
I find it hard to believe that the company that takes medical waste from abortion clinics would never put 2 and 2 together, that they're. But what else would they have? let's see, let's go with you, ma'am, and then you, sir. Go ahead.
My tangent to that is, how did you know what was in the box before asking for it?
So, Teresa and Lauren picked up the box not knowing what was in it. They called me, and I said, we don't know what's in it. Go get gloves, go get masks, be very careful, you literally don't know what's inside. Set up a camera, and then film opening the box in real time. So, it could have been just, you know, piles of bloody rags or whatever, but it was, in fact, babies.
If we had the audio turned on at the unboxing, you would hear Lauren reacting and saying, it's babies, because we didn't know.
And all of that audio will be on what's online. We apologize if this failed. This, sir, here, and then you, ma'am. Go ahead.
Can you describe any conversations you've had with mainstream pro-life groups in the past several days, perhaps ones that they don't want to say on the record, but them having discussions with you, maybe advising you or providing kind of comments and support, even if they don't want to speak on the record publicly?
What is the question?
Say it again. You're saying what pro-life leaders and pro-life groups have we spoken to?
Yeah, and especially if they don't want to speak on the record, can you convey, you know, why they have told you they don't want to speak on the record about this?
I have no comment on that.
I have no comment.
They have to speak and answer for themselves. It was you, ma'am, and then you, ma'am. Go ahead.
So just now you said that you weren't sure what was in the box when you unboxed them, but before that, wouldn't you have had to tell the Curtis Bay employees that you said that they were fetuses in these boxes? So did you tell them that
it was the logical assumption that they were going on when they spoke to the driver. This is coming from the abortion mill. It's a huge, heavy box full of medical waste. So, do you know what's in this box? No, he wouldn't. You know, probably dead babies. I don't think that they were. Well, you can answer that.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. We were going on an assumption and wanted to convey to him that there was a probability that there were dead babies in there.
Next question. Go ahead, ma'am, from the Washington Post.
You had mentioned a little bit about, you know, these questions about other pro-life groups. Live Action had aired these videos. Can you tell us, are you working closely with them? Who else did you share the videos with? And your lawyer is from Center for Medical Progress. Are you part of those organizations? Can you share a little bit about your relationship to those groups?
They're not directly involved. I had shared some information that they did release. We did not authorize that, but you know, it's been a very tense situation. There's a lot of trauma involved with viewing these videos, especially for those of us who are already engaged in pro-life activism, and you know, it's water under the bridge.
PAU believes and promotes unity through diversity. And it is important now for the justice for the five that we come together in unity to ensure that the five get the proper justice, proper burial, an autopsy. We believe in, once again, unity through diversity.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what the dimensions of the box were. I know there was video of the box, but how big it was? Sure. If you know that. And also what your interactions have been with DC police. Are you in contact with them?
Like this.
Okay.
Like a moving box.
Big.
Okay. And it was just one box?
One box.
Okay.
We haven't had any interactions with the police other than allowing them to enter the property, pick up the babies, and that's it.
Okay.
As far as you know, where are the five now? I mean,
As far as we know, they're in the custody of the police.
The DC medical examiner.
the DC
Our
police
concern
the
is
DC
that they
police or
will.
FBI?
Our concern is that they will treat these babies improperly. These children must have a proper burial. And the callousness and the speed with which the DC police responded shows that they're not interested in justice in this matter.
And our concerns come from how Gosnell's victims were incinerated and put in a potter's grave.
Did you?
Hey, so in reaching out to the DC medical examiner, I've been told that Mayor Bowser is handling all communications on this front. Have you guys heard from Bowser at all?
No.
No.
Do you have any idea whether she'll allow autopsies to be performed?
We don't know.
You're watching in real time a crime against children and a cover-up in broad daylight. Give the babies to the proper authorities, give the babies to somebody without an agenda, and let them do an autopsy. What was their age? How were they killed? Were any of them alive outside of the womb before they were discarded? These are simple questions. And any journalist in this room that wants to make it seem like the mayor is the hero or that these guys are the villains, you should be ashamed of yourself. We've seen stories come out over the last few days from left-wing crazy rags that are, they would be funny. It would be like The Onion was writing them, except that they're so grotesque. So, if nothing else, at least accurately report what are the focal and central points of the story. Babies found, how old were they? Why isn't the Fed going after these people at the same time? These people contacted the local authorities and then suddenly the DOJ comes in with the FBI to arrest them. Are they connected? We don't know. We may never know.
That was gonna be my question, actually. You call, if I understand the timeline correctly, you call the police and 2 days later a 2-year-old case comes up?
The indictment had come almost a month earlier. The DOJ under Trump was not prosecuting these cases. So somebody wanted to show their pro-abortion bona fides, the Department of Justice, and dug up a case that was 2 years old. And probably the speed at which it happened. I mean, a month earlier is the indictment, but then suddenly when these babies are found, I think somebody at the DOJ and the police coordinated. That's my gut, but I could be wrong. So,
Question. As you point out, DC has very few restrictions on abortions. How can you be certain that these fetuses were not terminated based on medical need and or to save the woman's life? How can you be certain that wasn't the case?
Well, an autopsy would help reveal that. We know from the small amount of statistics that we do have on the topic that the majority of even late-term, third trimester abortions are done for elective reasons. But the reality is we don't know, which is exactly why we contacted the police asking them for an autopsy.
And the DC medical examiner has said that they've looked into this and that they don't see any reason to move forward. Therefore, at this point, the fetuses are in the hands of the medical experts who say that they have no reason to move forward, that it's under law.
They said that a day later. It's very hard for me to imagine that they were able to conduct thorough autopsies on 5 unborn children, or possibly born, within 1 day.
Are you at all concerned about the possibility of vigilantism towards Santangelo following this presser? And can you state sort of unequivocally that you only want this dealt with through lawful means?
I am strategically, politically, and religiously against all forms of aggressive violence. I have always been strategically, politically, and religiously against all forms of aggressive violence.
Yes, sir.
Legally, if there's a conflict between the DC and the FBI and the national, how is that settled? Who gets priority? It's a little bit confusing.
He's asking if there's conflict between the DC police and FBI.
As you know, there are a lot of good people in law enforcement, and there are some that aren't good, and then what you deal with is the management. So the Biden management of the DOJ does not hold out much promise that the FBI would do a proper investigation into these babies, but they are the ones who should be tasked with it. So the DC police picked up the babies. That's who the lawyer contacted. I believe personally that was a strategic mistake. The babies should have been turned over to, yes, the babies should have been turned over to the FBI.
Can you elaborate, what did you mean about the Biden DOJ just now?
What did I mean?
Did
Well,
you
the
say,
president.
do you mean about this case specifically, or are you talking about some other cases?
Well, this case specifically.
I see. So in that they haven't responded yet, or what do you mean when you said the DOJ wasn't giving you confidence?
What do you mean when you say the DOJ isn't giving you confidence? The Biden.
Oh, because they're arresting people who did a sit-in at this abortion facility, and the guy who's running the abortion facility is walking free. I mean, how much more of a glaring testimony do you want?
I would also like to make a further comment on people who use violence to create social change. We cannot mirror the injustice. We must break that cycle of violence. We must act non-violently. We cannot mirror the injustice. We want to build a culture where instead of hurt people, but healed people, heal people. We must promote justice, peace, beauty, and truth. And I am against all forms of aggressive violence. And going forward, we all must, for these five, we must act in nonviolence.
Sir.
So last question, the California case, is that kind of a precedent for this? In other words, the other side was being charged. Does that have any relationship with it?
I don't know.
The Daldine,
David Delight.
Is that a precedent that could affect this, or is there completely different?
We don't know.
If any of you want to have lengthy interviews, we've been able to set up some long-form interviews for Teresa and Lauren. And if any of you are interested in that, please see one or the other of them, give your contact information, and we'd be happy to set something up. Unless there's any, and dying, we appreciate you being here and wish all of you the best, and be safe. Godspeed be with you. Oh, by the way, if you want to get a tight shot, those are the names. So there was a naming ceremony for the babies with the priest present. So these are the 110 names that were given for the first trimester babies, and the 5 names at the bottom were the ones given for the late term. Sir, if you could move that tripod, then people can get a shot of it if they want.
Yeah, I'm just gonna make it. I'm just gonna leave it here for a second.
Elizabeth is the opposite. It's there. Because there's a light glare on it.
I think I'm gonna stand up right here.
Did you have a microphone set up, or were you just using the mic and the camera? That's not good. In the person just buy a mic.
You're
Ok. Estamos aquí porque 5 de ellos estaban asaltados y los cuerpos necesitan recibir la Unión Federal. También el doctor Saldaña es un asesino y queremos que él está en el cárcel. In English, ask me.
But I don't understand why they lie. But it is what it is, and there's so much footage everywhere that, you know what you know, honestly, we were just calling everyone. I personally wasn't really involved in that because my main focus was burials and spirit society. So we were the division of labor. So mine was like burials and spirit society.
I was wanted to see the phone back on Wednesday. Do you have your phone back? In other words, is there a number? No, you still don't. Okay. So email is still the best one.
Okay. Lauren, I just wanted to ask if you felt that today was a success and what you're hoping is going to happen going forward here.
I mean, I think it was as good as anything, and our story was shown, the timeline was shown. There's a lot of disinformation, outright lies, weird speculation that happened, and you know, it's kind of natural when such sensationalized stories come out. And so I don't begrudge anyone, I'm not angry with anyone. We just want to go forward, share the full story in a nuanced way that was mindful of people who've experienced pregnancy loss and abortion-related trauma.
How did you feel like the press responded to this? Did you feel like you were sort of given a fair shake by the media, or?
I think before the press conference, a lot of wild speculation, once again, like I said, happened because there wasn't a lot of details, because like the thought of like 5 fetuses in someone's home, it's just like people are upset, and it's just like people are, and the thing is, people are rightfully upset. This is horrifying. What happened is horrifying. So once again, I can't begrudge people, I can't be angry at people. I understand where they're coming from because this is tragic, this is sad. Families were exploited, children were killed, and then the children were going to, if Curtis Bay had his way, to be able to burn these children for energy. And so, I mean, there's a lot of hurt feelings going all around because it's natural. That is a natural response to violence.
Fair enough. Thank you, Lauren.
There's a bunch of court cases going through. Obviously, the Supreme Court case in June. How do you think that this could possibly affect anything like legislation?
I personally believe that we can dismantle the abortion industrial complex without the Supreme Court, and I think that is through community-level activism and mass mobilization and people power. I look forward to see what happens at the Supreme Court, but once again, I believe people power is more important than the reliance on the Supreme Court. I believe this is an amoral government. As a Catholic anarchist, and we have an amoral government, and the tides sway whichever and every way. But one thing that we can count on is community and connection and people power, and I have more faith in that than the courts.
What do you think of people casting you as being on the right, in spite of identifying as an anarchist and wearing a shirt that says progressive?
You know, people's confirmation bias, we're bucking up against confirmation bias, and like, once again, speculation and everything of that nature. But, you know, I'm far left, and I believe that our liberation must include both born and unborn, and to create these safe and sustainable communities that we see in a reproductive justice framework. I don't believe we should exclude the unborn. I believe abortion is a violent band-aid, and that access to clean water, affordable and safe housing, universal income, workers' rights, these are all ways we can create safe and sustainable communities where we don't have to pick and choose which of our children live or die.
Thank you, Lorna.
Why do you believe that abortion access, or whatever you want to call it, is kind of considered a progressive left ideal as opposed to what's considered as right?
Once again, the abortion industrial complex is the overlapping interests of business and state, and I think the abortion lobby has pumped so much money into politics and electing leaders and shifting the Democratic platform, and I think that will go downstream and influence that. There are people of goodwill, left-leaning people of goodwill, who view total abolishment of abortion or limitations of abortion. Teresa, our executive director and founder of Progressive Anti-Abortion, she can definitely speak more on that as well. Yeah, thank you.
I was going to talk to Teresa also. I was going to.
Yeah, and then we get it.
Yeah, sure. And there's a quick conversation going on here, but I plan to do one more interview here before coming live stream.
Okay, but I should just text her the photos or? She's traveling.
Change over.
Teresa, one quick question. Can I call you anti-abortion activist?
Yes. You're welcome.
Hi, I'm still live. I'd love to give you kind of the last word here if you would like to talk for a bit. How do you feel that this went?
Well, I'm relieved that it has taken place. I think that, you know, we've put our story on the record, and it's been obviously really emotionally difficult dealing with the trauma that we experienced when we opened the box, but then also the the media just attempting to make a story out of this that isn't true, or slandering Lauren, and that it adds another layer of stress. And so being able to set the record straight, being able to tell exactly what happened to the public, it is a little liberating, and I feel very good about telling our story today.
Something I was asking Lauren about, and she actually said you probably could articulate a little bit more, was can you talk about being kind of like framed as right-wing by much of the media in spite of, it seems like, self-orienting as progressives? Can you talk about being progressive and anti-abortion and why the media right-casts you?
Well, in my advocacy, I've long looked at the relationship that the abortion industrial complex has with the Democratic Party, and I recognize that it is the primary pillar of power for the abortion industry. And I have looked at the statistics, and I have talked to pro-life leftists for years, and just leftists in general, and what I find in the statistics and in anecdotes is that most Democrats do not support elective late-term abortion. Most Democrats, I've seen statistics up to 70%, do want to see abortion more restricted than it is today, especially in the third trimester, especially in elective cases. And yet the Democratic Party has this extremist platform that does not even remotely represent the majority of Democrats. And one of the ways that they've been able to do that is by stigmatizing and shaming any left-leaning person who expresses even like the smallest amount of like affirming points of view, by calling them, a right-winger or, a religious extremist. It's a very effective tactic that has been used for decades, and it has stigmatized and shamed left-leaning pro-lifers into silence. But the reality is that they are out there, and PAU is looking to remind them that this isn't about right or left. Even Marxist teaching says to each according to their need, from each according to their ability. We see that fitting right into the pro-life message and applying to the unborn. So it is a tactic by the abortion industrial complex that they are utilizing with their massive amounts of influence in the media, in the Democratic Party, to continue to stigmatize any life-affirming efforts, any pro-life efforts, any anti-abortion efforts, labeling it as right-wing so that they can continue to hold power with that relationship.
Has it been challenging to you to form sort of strategic alliance, I guess, with more conservative folks who are pro-life? Like, is it hard being a leftist standing on the podium with people who say, I don't agree with her on anything except abortion?
Yeah, it is. It's very difficult. Unity is a very difficult thing to achieve, but I have studied social justice movements of the past and the difficulty of this, and this is something that every social justice movement has to face and to manage. And what we see is social justice movements that fail to unite under one issue fall apart, and it is unifying through our diverse points of view that we will be able to achieve victory. So it is strategic. We want to bring about justice for the unborn, and that's going to be literally impossible if pro-life progressives refuse to work with people who they deeply disagree with on other issues.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Ford.
All right, so I'm going to wrap the live stream there. The two interviews you just saw were basically with the director of Activism and the executive director of the of Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising, PAU. So with that, I'm going to cut the live stream here. I will have HD footage highlights up later today. Thank you for watching.